Non-duality is a core concept at the foundation of many of the world's great ancient spiritual teachings, as well as some not so old. In this video, I'm going to define what non-duality is. I'll tell you a little bit about those ancient spiritual teachings. We'll talk a lot about what true oneness really is. We'll talk about why duality is an illusion. And I'll end off by giving you some practical suggestions on how to incorporate non-duality into your daily life. So stay tuned. Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Michael Doyle. This video is the first in a series that I'm going to be doing, consisting of about 6 videos, all around non-duality, the practice of non-duality in your daily life, and some of the reasons why it's slightly controversial to some people within the spiritual community. The purpose of these videos is to ultimately create a course at the end of it that I will conduct on Zoom, where we will have a chance to do some live Q&A. Understanding the concept of non-duality is one thing, but actually putting it into practice and what that could really mean for your life, it's going to require some practical examples that will mostly come from the participants' lives. And then that way they can understand how it fits into their life and how they can proceed from there. To define non-duality, it's a philosophical and spiritual concept that emphasizes the absence of fundamental separation or duality in existence. All things are interconnected and part of a single reality. It challenges the conventional wisdom of there being a self and other, or the observer and the observed, or God and humanity. As I said, it's not enough to understand it. The whole purpose of learning about non-duality is to experience it. What's it really like to be one with God? To be a fractal of God? And this requires a totally obtainable and achievable shift in your perception of reality. It goes far beyond what this video can teach you, so I encourage you to come back and watch the other videos, and maybe even participate in a Zoom program that I'll do at the end where we can do a lot of Q&A. Of course, I believe it's very well worthwhile to learn this, as I've experienced tremendous peace as a result of incorporating it into my life, and feel a much greater sense of empowerment over my supposed reality. There are many ancient spiritual teachings, as I said, that have adopted the concept of non-duality. One not so old is A Course in Miracles. It's a spiritual text that was channeled in the 70s. The author is Jesus, and the scribe was Helen Schucman. It explores themes of non-duality and emphasizing the oneness of all existence. And it presents a unique perspective as compared to, let's say, these other ancient religions. I myself have been a student of A Course in Miracles for several decades, and so a lot of the perspectives that I'll share will be coming or slanted more towards that than anything else. Advaita Vedanta, or Hinduism, also has at its core the concept of non-duality. It teaches that the individual self, or Atman, and the ultimate reality, Brahman, are identical, and that the perception of a separation between the two is an illusion. By the way, these descriptions of the ancient religions or spiritualities I took from Wikipedia, so I'm reading these. Then there's Zen Buddhism, and it emphasizes direct experiential realization. Zen focuses on transcending dualistic thinking to perceive the inherent unity of all things. And then there's Dzogchen, which is Tibetan Buddhism, meaning great perfection. Dzogchen refers to the natural primordial state of being, emphasizing the recognition of one's inherent non-dual awareness. And then we have Taoism. Central to Taoist philosophy is the concept of the Tao, the fundamental principle that is the source of all existence, highlighting the interconnectedness and the unity of all things. Foundational to non-duality is the concept of oneness. So let's explore what that really means. What it means is it points to the absolute truth that there is no separation. There is only one undivided reality. Distinctions between self and others, subject and object, or even spiritual and material, are ultimately illusions created by the mind. Non-duality means not two or one. Makes sense, right? Duality means two. All appearances of separation, such as individual identity, time, space, and form, are misperceptions of the mind. There's only pure awareness, pure being, pure oneness, or God. Anything that seems to be separate from God is a false perception. Our true nature is already one with God, and all seeming separation is simply a mistaken thought to be undone. There are no opposites. In true oneness, there is no battle between good and evil, light and dark, or spirit and matter. So oneness can be understood intellectually, but it's ultimately an experiential reality. True recognition of oneness is not a belief or a philosophy, but a direct, lived realization of which all distinctions disappear. Some people can achieve this perspective very quickly, and others it can take many, many years before they can truly get to the point of being able to detach enough from what they are observing to realize the oneness of all things. Let's explore for a moment then the illusion of separation. The idea that we are separate beings distinct from one another and the world is an illusion perpetrated by the ego. It's a projection. And this illusion in A Course in Miracles is called the dream, or the projection of the wrong mind. If there is only oneness, then the notion of a separate I is part of the illusion. The self that believes in separation is a misidentification with form rather than true being. And this is the way, of course, that the vast majority of us have been brought up to believe, that we are separate from each other, and that we are separate from the world, we are separate from God, and it's all based on separation. But what non-duality teaches is that that's all an illusion. It's an illusion to think that I am separate from you, or you are separate from anybody else, or separate from anything, from the world, from everything that you perceive. It's all you. That's what oneness is, including your oneness with God. Now, for some people, that's going to be a real stretch. It's common for people to resist this idea completely, or for quite a long time before they study some more and then begin to realize the truth of this, or they have a direct experience of it. Many, many years ago, decades ago, I had done a workshop where the vibration was very, very high. It was a weekend workshop, and I was at home after the weekend. It was a beautiful spring day. So I took a walk along the path that surrounded the lake that I was living near. As I was climbing going up a slight incline, there was a park bench there. So I decided to sit on the park bench. And I was just looking out over the water, and the sun was shining, and seagulls were flying by, and there were boats out on the water. And then all of a sudden, it was like a veil shifted or was removed. And I no longer was a body sitting on a bench looking out over a lake that was separate from me, that seagulls were separate from me, the sun was separate from me. But all of a sudden, I was all of that. comprehend that for a moment. Some of you have probably had an experience like that once or maybe several times. And usually it only lasts a couple of seconds because it's so shocking. You kind of wake up and then you end it and you wish that you could go back to it again. That is sort of a momentary, extreme version of experiencing oneness. But the idea of non-duality is that you, through practicing the detachment and the alignment with the truth of who you really are, the fractal of God, your soul, that becomes more and more your experience. And then that provides a lot of opportunities for things like creating your reality instead of being a victim of it. Things like that we'll talk more about. In oneness, perception dissolves into pure knowingness or awareness. So that's what happened to me on the park bench, right? My perception of things dissolved into pure awareness. And that, of course, is beyond the subject-object divide. Even those of us who are on a personal spiritual journey or path, that's all a dream too. Because really, there's nowhere for us to go. We're already there. The work is not in trying to get somewhere. The work is in releasing the false beliefs and teachings that teach us that we aren't already there, that we're already God. We're already a fractal of God. Where do we need to go? We only need to remember that truth and to experience it. Concepts like ascension and traveling through the dimensions are useful metaphors, but they aren't real because there's nowhere to go. We're already there. We just need to remove the false beliefs that say otherwise. Let's talk then about how we deepen our awareness of oneness in our daily life. As we've already said, it requires a shift from an intellectual understanding to direct experience. So what do we mean by that? Well, you could be somebody who understands and knows everything there is to know about orange juice. You could have traveled to Florida and picked oranges. You could draw oranges. You could slice oranges. You could smell oranges. You could make juice out of oranges. But until you actually eat an orange, you have not had the experience of it. It's an abstract experience until you actually eat the orange. And that's the same thing with non-duality. You could be an intellectual who understands everything about the concept of non-duality, but if you don't actually experience it, you really don't know what you're talking about. And so that's the aim, is to get to where you experience it more and more in your daily life. A Course in Miracles, for example, teaches the concept of forgiveness as the way to arrive at this place of where you experience oneness and you recognize that everything that you're seeing is a projection from your mind and it's actually an illusion. There are no real cars, no real houses, no real world. Now, in A Course in Miracles, forgiveness is slightly different than what we normally think of as forgiveness. Normally we think, well, if I forgive somebody, I'm being the bigger person. They really did do me wrong, and I might forgive them, but I won't forget. That's not forgiveness in A Course in Miracles' point of view. Forgiveness from A Course in Miracles is it never happened. For example, you're having a conversation with somebody and they say something that hurts you, or they do something that you have a negative reaction to, and you get angry. From A Course in Miracles' point of view, that never really happened. That was a script that you wrote, directed, and produced and projected outside of you, and that other person is an actor within the script that you wrote the script for, and they are playing it out for you. From A Course in Miracles' point of view, you realize, wait a minute, what's going on inside of me that I would do that? I would project that out there. Well, if I'm making that person guilty, chances are what I'm doing is I'm in denial of my own guilt, and I'm projecting that out onto this other person. So I can take accountability for my guilt, and I can, as the Course says, choose once again. And what A Course in Miracles is about is a miracle is a shift in perception from a wrong-minded perception of what that person has done to a right-minded perception, which is, this is an illusion, it's not really happening, it's just there to show me where my mind is at, and I'm obviously coming from the lower mind or the ego, and I can make a shift in my perception and put something else out there and recognize that everybody's either expressing love or asking for love, and so I can choose to come from love. That's the practice from A Course in Miracles point of view. Now, you may prefer a different approach, which is quantum structure and quantum manifestation. So what does that mean? Everything that is within the illusion, in other words, everything that is not God, is an illusion, and it's part of the quantum structure. Where there appears to be space, within the quantum structure, there is no actual space. There is no time and space. And so, within the quantum structure, if I'm in that same situation again, where I've projected this situation with this person, I recognize that I've projected this into the quantum field. And so I need to pull back my projection, same as A Course in Miracles, just different languaging. Pull back my perception, realize that that's not what I want to be putting out into the field, and so I can choose to put something else into the field. I can choose to shift my attention on something else. I can choose to put out a different vibration. But the main point is, as long as I believe that that person is there, at least the very thing that I need to do is withdraw that projection. Stop whatever it is that I'm doing that's creating the discomfort, the anger, whatever, and take accountability for it. Both of these explanations were very simple, and that's why some of you might be going, huh? That's why this work really is best done with somebody who knows what they're talking about, where you can bounce off your experiences and ask your questions to. So I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. And if what I've just described in those two examples is something that you're confused about and having a difficulty wrapping your head around, I encourage you to watch the future videos in this series that I'm going to do. Study A Course in Miracles or watch videos online of A Course in Miracles, and read any information on the field, the quantum field. And a good place to start would be to read The Field by Lynn McTaggart. Not an hour and a half ago or so, I watched a video by Federico Fagan, who has written a couple of books on this subject. Titles I forget from the video, but you might want to check his work out as well. As we've discussed, oneness is not something that you achieve. It's what you already are, and it's a case of remembering it at every opportunity that you can. The only thing that needs to happen is the undoing of the false perception, and that takes practice. With regards to the practice of forgiveness, as A Course in Miracles talks about, I've been doing that daily, maybe once, maybe 20, 30 times a day since 2010. And I have seen the benefits and the shifts in doing that. I can say for sure my reality is far more peaceful because I know I'm far more responsible for what is being reflected back to me. I don't have a lot of the situations that people have with either things breaking down or conflicts with people, just undesirable circumstances, far fewer undesirable circumstances, big and little, because you're far more aware of what you are putting out into the field. So you're more deliberate about your thinking and your emotions and what you're putting out there. So what I am going to encourage you to do is submit your questions to the email in the description box below about non-duality and how it applies in daily life. And at the end, when I'm finished the video series, the last video I'll do is answer these questions. In the next video, we're going to talk about the illusion of the separate self. And in the following ones, the next 5 or 4 after that, we'll talk about more ways of practically applying it. And we'll look at some of the reasons why non-duality in some circles has gotten a bad rap, because it looks like passivity. And there are different philosophies of non-duality, and we'll talk about that. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye for now.